right, welcome back, everyone. It's Anthony Maggio here and Greg Prost with AGI, Anthony and Greg on Intelligence. And I have to say, the funniest... Okay, if you watched our last episode here, well, I guess the last two, we've been struggling to get ChatGPT on voice mode to function correctly in a way where we say it doesn't talk unless we say, "Hey, Nancy." That's been the struggle. And this last episode, so the first episode, couldn't get it to work, went on with it. The last one, Greg had gotten some prompts to use to give it so chat said, "Oh, if this is what you're trying to do, here's the prompt." Used that, and it still wasn't working right. But if you catch at the very tail end of the credits, all of a sudden you'll hear Nancy come back and start talking. And Greg, what was she saying there? Like
she just acted like everything was done. You know, I'm good here. I'm back, and that worked fine. Hopefully that worked for you, basically. And so we said, well, why did you come back?
Yes.
Why did you stop from being in the closed mode? And she said, well, I heard the prompts. I heard music. I just understood it to be, over. The podcast was over. Like taking her own initiative to assume that it was already over. And now I'm taking off my handcuffs here and I'm going to start speaking. I thought that was pretty wild.
That is great. And kid you not, like you'll hear it at the very end. All of a sudden it starts talking and we're like, we thought you were back off again. She's like, oh yeah, I thought you were done. I heard you guys wrapping up. I heard the credits. I heard the music. And so I just wanted to see if you want me to still do this or go back to normal. As if she was, which is what was prompted. We want you to be a guest on the show, right? So she knew that was, what their purpose was, and the purpose was ending. And so now do I still need to do that? So
and it even goes back to ChatGPT wanting to help you, right? Do things that are helpful. So it automatically just assumes and makes that leap. And it's nice in certain circumstances, but in other circumstances, like we were talking about before, using something like Perplexity that just gives you boom, 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 here are the answers. That's what you wanted exactly. Whereas ChatGPT is a little more flowing, trying to figure it out as it goes along, which is fascinating. And I think ultimately that's obviously what you want as a personal assistant, is something that knows you and anticipates movements and that kind of thing, and you get to kind of give and take.
They're always listening anyways.
Absolutely.
Why not be useful?
Well, as you do, you ask everybody in the audience. I just did this last week. How many people have never used AI, and you have X number of people raise their hand and saying, well, how many of you do not have a smartphone, and nobody raises their hand and saying, you're using AI all the time. So
I did that. So the one I do is I did it a few conferences ago. I did fishing boats and fishing poles, and so I just kept saying it. And I was like, oh, we're getting fishing poles, and, make sure we're going to get some brand new fishing rods, and then we're going to get those fishing poles and fishing rods. And I guess depending on what part of the country you're from, it's a rod or a pole. I don't really understand. I'm not a fisherman. And we're going to get a fishing boat, and we're going to go on a fishing expedition, and we're going to do a lot of fishing. And I just kept saying that over and over and over again. So now ours are going to do that. Yeah. And then sure enough, by the end of the session, somebody had said at the end, raised their hand like, here it is. I said, here, like I'd forgotten even of what was going on. That wasn't at the end. That was like more in the beginning. And he goes, charter fishing trips and, by where he lives or what. I go, see, I told you guys.
Yeah, it prompted him.
This stuff is listening because they're trying to sell you on stuff all of the time. That's how they all make money.
And that's my standard answer when people say, hey, you think it's going to be on me. I'm not going to have that. Are you crazy? Or, are you going to throw away your smartphone? If you believe that, get rid of your smartphone tomorrow. Are you going to do that? And, of course, nobody does. So you're
all the Alexas and Google Homes and whatever the other one is that, people have in their houses for the Ring doorbell. I guess that'd be Google now. They bought Ring. But, it'd be, whether it's the doorbells or the screen in the kitchen, the whatever it is, hey, Alexa, turn on the lights, turn on to this. They always are listening anyways.
I just read again, and I used this in a talk 6 months ago, where using Wi-Fi the Wi-Fi signals. You can look at Wi-Fi signals and see how they bounce around a room and come up with an image of what's in the room. So when you use as human beings walking around the room, just from a Wi-Fi signal traveling around your home, they can determine if you're there or not.
Thank you, CIA.
Yes, exactly. So lots of crazy things, and AI is good at that kind of stuff. That's a lot of information, and AI is really good at disseminating that kind of thing. So if you think you're hiding or you're worried about your information being out there, or you're not going to use AI because that's what you're worried about, you should be worried about a lot of other things in your current life. And if you're not, maybe just relax a little bit.
Yes.
Hey, Nancy, you there? So it's interesting. She's not, that's the other part. She wasn't really answering back and forth, but then she'll probably kick in right in the middle of nowhere. Can you answer that question for us, Nancy? Can't tell if she's stuck in a mode or not. All right, we'll keep going.
Poor
see
Nancy.
what she has to
We'd rather just tell, hey, Nancy, go back to normal mode. No, she's in her own world right now, apparently.
Yeah, we'll keep going.
Don't worry. As soon as the podcast is over, she'll start talking again. So
yes,
listen into the credits, because as soon as the credits start, Nancy will chime in and give us some perspective on things. That's for sure.
All right, for the second half, though, we were going to talk about some practical things in the public space here. HR was one of the things we wanted to touch on. This is one of the more fascinating conversations I had with you months ago when we first started talking about some of these things, when you were using it to hire somebody in your department. I don't think we talked about this the first time through, right? So give kind of a big picture background where you hire some of you were looking to hire. You were bringing in the clerk and the HR director, I believe. The three of you were going to help make a decision, and you were using AI to just listen in on the interviews, and then the three of you went aside, ranked the candidates, and then you asked AI to rank the candidates. So the AI just listened in, had its own transcripts, but didn't know any background about the person, didn't have a resume, obviously couldn't see the person, and the results I thought were quite amazing.
Yes, yeah, and that's exactly how it was playing out. So we're looking at more use cases, and the thing that's always bugged me about people, other than people are awful. Like, have you met people? Like, they're just the worst. But the thing is that people make mistakes and they have biases. So anytime you're in any leadership training of any sort, organizational behavior, leadership training, it's always about biases. What are your biases? Everybody has biases. It doesn't matter what it is. They're all different levels of all different things, and a lot of the sessions spend time on it. And from using the tools, I'm like, well, the AI, yeah, they have biases for how they're trained, because if the data is biased, then that's all they know, so they'll be biased too. But they're so massive in it that, yeah, it's, ChatGPT is very, I don't know, a little bit more Californian, and Gemini is American-ish, so there's definitely some biases in them. But
and just one comment there real quick,
yes.
Kat. I think a lot of that is a lot better than it was. So a lot of people go back to Google's first picture generator, and just showing pretty woke pictures, and that was an early edition of it, and no doubt, but it showed you how bias can enter into areas of AI easily, no question about it. But
yes,
every new iteration that comes out is so much better at that. And a lot of times people will say, well, what if somebody just dumped in 1 million pieces of information that say phishing? And so when you ask this question, it's looking at all the answers, and because there's so many sitting here that say phishing, it just automatically biases that way, and that people can do to fake the system out. And I say, well, no, the AI is really smart. You wouldn't get faked out by that, right? Because you look at it and say, hey, they just put these in yesterday. Ignore anything that was just put in yesterday a million times and just look at past data that you have. Don't and the AI is going to understand that completely. It's going to understand what is going on there, right? It already has its test data that it has that it thinks is and knows is pretty clean. So if people start dumping stuff on top of it, I think it's going to be difficult. But anyway, I think that's a serious thing that always comes up. And I think just like we talked about consistently, every new iteration is a lot better at this. Not saying there isn't bias. There's always going to be bias. But going back to what we talked about before too, using different systems. So,
Yes.
And I'm not asking it, that kind of heady questions all the time. I'm just asking to buy a pencil or whatever it might be, right? So.
Yes, and that'll be.
But hiring HR, there's a lot of bias there. So this is a little more serious one. Why we're talking about it.
That is so. What we did is I started with so I put in the job description and the posting, and I said, all right, I need some interview questions, and I don't want the generic interview questions that you get all of the time at every interview. I want them to be tailored to the job. So we had some discussions with the tool about what are the primary focuses of the job, and then how to structure interview questions to where you'll find out if they know those parts of the job or how well they do at what level. So got our 10 questions, and so went forward, and I said, all right, let's so I ran these kind of, as you were saying, as two separate parallel paths. I wanted to see what does normal process look like versus AI process. And so we were running it with the regular process. And then I was on the side doing the AI piece. And I was waiting till we were done with each piece before I went on to the next one. So, for instance, you have the stack of resumes, right? And there's some fascinating research on resume reading.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. This one researcher, so he had the HR and recruiting people reviewing resumes, and he had set up some cameras that were set up for eye tracking. Because his goal, he wanted to see where are people spending time on looking at resumes. Where are their eyes mainly focusing on?
Sure.
And it was really interesting to see how there was like across the top, there was a line, and then basically like a fourth in was basically where all of the time was spent, going straight down, very light across, mainly straight down, up, and that was it. So the majority of time was spent on like this of a page, right? It was just
Sure.
like the left.
And that makes
left
sense. That's how I
quarter
would
and
do
the
it,
top.
right? You're looking at the name, the
Yeah,
education, and
'cause
the
what's
first couple jobs.
What's at the top? Here's
Yeah.
your statement or your job,
Yeah.
whatever your piece is there. The name, the info, the job, what your goal is or motto or whatever random trendy things you're supposed to put on resumes these days. And then on the left side, you have what usually the format is job title, maybe years. That's it. Like, what were you doing and how long were you there for? Yeah. And then that was kind of the end of that. So I let that run, and then I said, okay, well, the AI doesn't skim in that sort of way. It just digests the information. So we had our top picks, and so then I put in the all the private information removed into the AI, and I said, all right,
the resumes.
I'm sorry, the resumes. Yes,
Okay, yeah.
The redaction. I cut off those pieces, and then I put it in. And I said, okay, give me. So you have here's the job description, and here's the job posting. Here's the resumes. Which ones on paper? Right. This is all we're looking at. We don't have interviews yet. We don't know how they talk, how they interact, how their personalities are. And it just has, at that point, spits out its rankings of who and what and why. Okay, cool. All right. We'll circle back to the results later because it's not important at this point. We're running parallel. So we set up the interview processes, and we're using a tool that we were getting the questions and answers, and we were transcribing them. So we were taking notes off that. And so how everyone actually answered is, so, the AI can't see what they look like. It can't, it doesn't have any bias in
I thought
any
you
of that.
had it listening to them, because I thought,
Nope, transcripts.
Just by, listening to somebody's voice, you can get a lot of idea of a little bit about them as well.
Transcripts only on this one.
It would have been better to have it listened. I'd like to see.
Well, the tools now.
I hear a little bit of West Virginia in there.
Probably would be fine. So, running through that. And then, we're asking the questions, the follow-ups, how they answer, all that sort of stuff. So now we have that. Interviews are all done. So now we record our little bit afterwards. And I do this as an exercise, too. I've done this in 2 other presentations at a conference where they want, like, an exercise. So we do, like, mock interviews. So we have, like, fake resumes and fake things, and I run them through, like, this entire setup, right, to show how this logistically works. Cool. So now we get to the end, and then I have everybody, like at the conferences, right, the workshop, so we'll have them, like, rank them. Okay, who did you like and why? And the transcripts, right, it's no different than here was the question asked, here's how they answered it. The thing when I was making the transcripts is I was using AI to make the transcripts, and I said, I want you to make this one from the viewpoint of a experienced in this area, not in this area, and I want you to answer as if that. And so I got all these different viewpoints and stuff.
This is for the class, not for the actual hiring.
Which runs the exact same way.
Yeah, sure.
Right, so no different. So I now have, at the end, we have how do we rank people, why do we rank them that way. We have the paper version of ranking. We have that compared to the AI. We have the how do they answer based to the AI. And so now I take all those discussions and now I bring it all together. Okay, so now I have the AI has no idea what we said because I haven't given it any of the information yet. It has no idea what any of the other people are, and it doesn't know. I did remove the names, so it also, which was just at the beginning, like, "Hi, I'm Bob. Hi, I'm," just it wasn't mentioned anywhere else. Sure. I removed that, so it didn't know what resume was whose. I just said, "Here's the questions we asked. Here's the job description and posting." And here's how they answered. Here's the transcripts of how they answered the questions. Rank them. Okay, so now we have, and this is what I always find interesting with interviews. I tell people is, we make these decisions on basically speed dating, right? You're going to sit with someone for 20 or 30 minutes, ask questions. Basically, if you get along with them and they seem pretty cool, then, oh, yeah, they must know what they're talking about, and then you want to hire them regardless if they have any knowledge of anything, because it's just the communication piece as humans. So, it has its ranking. Okay, cool. We have ours. Okay, cool. So now I start doing comparisons, and I don't really care about what's similar. I want to know what's different. And so the way I was asking, and now with the tool, is going, okay, here's our ranking based on the interviews and the information we have so far. Where does it differ from yours? And I already asked it for it first, so I knew it wasn't going to read our response and then make up its own list. I said, what's your ranking? Okay, now I have it. Now I fed it our information. Where does it differ?
And you, if I remember correctly, you recorded your conversation too, your internal conversation. I believe.
Yes,
you did. So that
comes even after this.
Okay, how you debated it and put it back in and
Yes.
said, "Here's how we debated it. Tell us where we're wrong or where you think we're missing," which is just cool.
So I started with questions only. So there was kind of 3 breaks: paper break, interview questions, stop, analyze, break. And then there was the post-discussion, who, what, when, where, why. 3rd part. Now it's everything together. And the part that was most interesting is the rankings for a couple. The top 3 were all the same. There was no differences in that. What was interesting is 4 and 5. And 4 could be 3. With its ranking, but those like last couple. And we had, how many did we have? I think we had 10. I think there was 10 for this one. So, we're looking top 2 were the same reason, same everything. That's all fine. When we got to 3, 4, 5, we kind of had some varying opinions, but where the AI came in is we had looked at someone and said, they don't have any experience in this area. None. Not even in government. Like, they're a non-government person, which anybody that works in government is no different. If you come from private to public or you go from public to private, you get into those worlds and you go, the response is the same. You're all nuts.
Yeah, right.
Right? It doesn't, whichever one is going in either direction, you enter that world and it's like, you guys do what?
Right.
Why do you do it that way? All the time, always the same. But what the AI did was, based on the responses, it was seeing that they were answering in a way of how they overcame something that they didn't know much about. And it picked that up based on how they were answering the questions. Like, yeah, I don't know anything about this software program. I have this other program. It was me. And so they were going into a kind of like almost like a story. And I was new at this company and then I started doing this. So I had to figure this out. So it was picking up that the person has a very, they're very adaptable, because all the responses were basically, I don't know anything about your world, but here's how I approach these things. So even though it wasn't in the top 2, the AI was like, I like this person more than, the 3 and the 4 kind of flipping. I kind of like this one more because although they don't know anything with that style, they should be able to learn it. The curve will be very short. They're going to be able to learn and adapt very quickly to not knowing anything. So it didn't have that as a concern like we did, where we're like, man, you don't know anything about it. Like, that's, call that a bias, an experience bias, I guess, for the job, where it was picking up more on like character or, the attributes, the characteristics of how they handle stuff.
Who'd make the best employee,
which would
right?
make,
If straight up, and that would, I don't know if you asked this question, but if we don't care if you know any background or not on, these certain systems, we want you to have a finance background or whatever, or accounting or whatever, but we don't care if you exactly know how to use BS&A software or something like that, because we can teach you that. Who's the best candidate?
yes.
And so that changes a lot of things, right? So most people hire, and so why would you hire somebody who knows how to do the job that you think you can train somebody in 2 or 3 weeks? Because that 2 or 3 weeks is going to be a pain in the neck, even though you're going to have the employee for the next 10, 20 years, right? Theoretically. So that, if it understands that this person is this type of thinker, and we've had this conversation before where there's a certain number of people, and it's a small number of people that can kind of do second level thinking. They can do that first level, and therefore if A plus B equals C, then, it leads on to the next one. And it's a small group of people. I think AI would be really good at picking that type of person up, and they're going to be the best employee. And
especially if they can articulate it.
Absolutely. And, all the other attributes, right?
Yeah.
They can articulate themselves. They're good writers. They don't have holes in their pants. They're not smelly. Whatever. We're joking about that, but it's not seeing that type of thing. And so
the biases, right? Yeah. That's what Greg and I were talking. We're like, the AI, it can't see when you walk in the room that you're, disheveled and bad hygiene, and because we've all had that happen at some point with whatever the reasons are. I'm not going into that one, but there's an automatic, call it a bias or whatnot, that you have in those situations that you really struggle to overcome. And you can only overcome to an extent. The AI doesn't know any of this.
Right.
It's just telling you, what did they say? How did they answer? That's what I'm judging you on. I don't care that anything else that is happening right now. I am judging you based on just what you say.
And if most jobs, can be taught in a very short period of time, everybody thinks they're an expert at whatever they're doing, but more times than not, most jobs, you can train somebody in 2 weeks to a month to learn something. Why not just take the best candidate? And if that's the case,
Experience becomes irrelevant.
yeah, that's kind of dangerous, right? Then it starts putting people into boxes, right? Hey, this person can think outside the box, so I'm going to put them up here, or this second
But
level
does it?
thinking.
So if we have these AI tools now, okay, follow with me down the rabbit hole here. I can take someone with no experience, and if I made my main job AI tool here, all our policies, all our procedures, all our information that's unique to us, pick any job, could be a business too, it doesn't have to be unique to a government, and the AI tool is trained on all of that information, okay? Very simple to do, very easy to do. So now you get the right person who doesn't know any of those things, but if you give them the AI tool and say, hey, I know you don't know anything about government, okay? You don't know anything about us. You're brand new to this sector. You know, you live in a city, so you understand kind of how that works. But here's this tool that anytime something doesn't make sense or you don't know what's going on, ask it. And it will help guide you through the steps to figure out what it is you don't know.
Like the treasurer's booklet now, right?
There we go. We have the treasurer's AI guide now.
Exactly. But
Yes.
then why do we need the person in the first place?
Somebody's got, at this point, somebody's still got to prompt the
And
tool,
so,
right?
And so it's got AI.
Because it won't listen to instructions, Nancy.
Exactly. Hey, Nancy, how you doing? Almost at daily limit. Yeah, well, I'm going to turn that off.
She won't even answer.
But no, so the AI will want to pick
Nancy.
somebody who's good at working with the AI or is good at the things it might not be the best at. I'm not sure what that is, but
It needs to physically do stuff. The AI can't do that yet.
Yeah, or at least understand
I
what
need to
you're
be
actually
plugged
doing.
in.
Yes, exactly.
Plug me in. My battery is low.
I think James is the best at that. He leaned over the best. Okay, hire him.
Yes.
Right? So that just leads down all kinds of rabbit holes. But I thought it was just cool that it was trying to pick the best candidate intellectually.
Yes.
And not necessarily,
And I was happy that the three, and it had tied 3 and 4. It said either one. So I look at it and go, well, our top 3 were basically the same for the same reason. So I felt good about that. I wasn't worried so much about having a big bias where we were missing something or we're all at the wrong conclusion, right? That's why you have multiple people sitting in on it. And so that part I thought was good. And then the counterpiece to that is I tell students or everyone else, the tools are there. Flip it. If you're looking for a job, put in the job description, put in the job posting, say, AI, give me 10 questions, interview questions for this job. Now, turn on the voice mode, give it the 10 questions and say, ask me, interview me, listen to my responses, and give me feedback every time. Did I mumble too much? Did I do Did I do, whatever it is? And give me feedback, because that's great practice.
Or even better, have it like Cyrano right in your ear and just tell you exactly how to answer the questions.
Yes.
Since you're going to be able to do that anyway, wouldn't that be a way of handling it?
I like that. I like that version.
But you've hit the daily limit for advanced
Oh,
voice.
sure. Now you talk to me when I hit the daily limit.
You want to know why?
I didn't shut it off. But,
there seems to be
they want to get paid.
It seems to.
It said upgrade to pro. I already pay the $20 a month. I'm not paying $200.
That is absolutely the case. It is so true. But you know what? At the end of it, it is just a recurring theme that whatever we're testing now on AI will start working when we get to the end of the show.
Yes.
Apparently, that's going to become the theme for that one. So.
Exactly.
So with that, I want to thank the listeners out there. We had another interesting show where we got to dive in a little bit deeper on the subject and kind of talk a little bit on the nuances, hopefully help out some people job hunting to prepare for interviews and practice that way, because the AI tools are free. They don't care what you say. And with that, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you at the next one.